Everybody knows Ocarina of Time, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but not every Zelda game gets the same spotlight. Some entries in this legendary franchise have been quietly forgotten, misunderstood or even dismissed, even when they brought great ideas to the table. So I asked the Zelda community one simple question: what is the most underrated Zelda game? And their answers were very eye-opening. So today, we're going to explore the most underrated Zelda games in the franchise with the help of you, the Zelda community. If you enjoyed the video, then hit that subscribe button down below for even more Zelda content here on Triforce Times. And also put your most underrated Zelda game down there in the comments. We'd love to hear what you think, and finally stick around to the end of the video for an exclusive offer to channel members. Okay, before we dive into the games, let's have a look at what underrated actually means. So it's not the same as bad, and it's not just overlooked. So underrated means a game that is better than its reputation. It's a gem that critics didn't appreciate or fans maybe ignored, but it deserves a second chance. So with that in mind, let's dive into the top picks and the most underrated Legend of Zelda games in the franchise with help from the Zelda community. Well, first of all, we've got Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. I'm going to kick you off here with a comment from Romulus879. So Romulus says, I would say the Oracle games are often underrated in many rankings that I've seen. They're ranked very low, even though I think they are really, really good. The Oracle games came out for the Game Boy Color right at the end of its life. Yeah, really deep puzzles, time and season mechanics, cross-game connectivity. Also, this one is made by Capcom as well. They never really had the same love as Link's Awakening, and I had multiple comments saying that these were the most underrated. Dark Dragon Medeus is next, backing up what Romulus said. So Dark Dragon says, I'll give it to the Oracle games. I think 2D Zelda in general is becoming underrated compared to 3D. If even the least popular 3D games is winning more community polls than the most popular 2D games, well, that speaks volumes. But it's the Oracle games, despite the clever puzzles and the unique charm, that still lack the cult followings, unlike Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, or even Minish Cap. Well, talking about Minish Cap, that one is next of all. So Minish Cap is whimsical, beautifully designed, and introduces the shrinking mechanic, letting Link explore a world from a whole new scale. It's charming, it's tight, it's creative, but rarely talked about. But thank you to Brendan Owl for picking this one, and also Dark Dragon Medeus also mentioning it too. Next up, we have Four Swords Adventures, and Gaming Reinvented is going to kick us off for Four Swords. So Four Swords or Four Swords Adventures, the necessity to play them with other people to get the most out of the experience really hurt their reputation, and it means a lot of fans just write them off entirely. Well, definitely a unique multiplayer Zelda game that almost no one played properly. Four Swords Adventures required the multiple Game Boy Advance systems and cables, making it one of the most inaccessible Zelda experiences. Well, next up we've got A Link Between Worlds, and we've got Tied Up in Smoke Stacy 2935. They're going to kick us off with a comment here, and they say, truly, I think it's A Link Between Worlds. Of all the 3D titles that have such a following from the majority of the fan base, I feel the newer 2D titles are passed over because of it. Well, A Link Between Worlds is a sequel to A Link to the Past, and this 3DS entry allows you to tackle dungeons in any order, and this was way before Breath of the Wild. The wall merging mechanic also added a whole new layer to the puzzles and traversal. Still, many fans overlook this game. Notably, this one isn't easy to play these days if you don't have the right hardware. It's one of the very few Zelda games not available via Nintendo Switch. Hopefully that is all going to change, either when Nintendo bring it to Nintendo Switch Online, or straight up for the Switch, similar to a port like Skyward Sword. Well, next up we got one very, very close to my heart. This is Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. One of the most divisive games in the series. Side-scrolling combat, RPG leveling, brutal difficulty, but if you give it time, there's a bold and rewarding game underneath. Personally, I think Zelda 2 is much better than we give it credit for. It's pretty much the meme game of the Legend of Zelda series, although not to me. This was my first Zelda game, and I won't hear a bad word said about it. Yes, the side-scrolling action can be a pain, but there's some memorable boss fights in here. Plus some of the moments in the towns and the villages, like when you find the mirror under the table, or when you fall down that hole near the graves. You know, some truly memorable moments mixed in with magic and RPG elements. I think the majority of people have it wrong with Zelda 2, and it's definitely one of the most underrated games in the franchise, and thank you to Cosmosis86 for mentioning this game. Well, next up we've got Majora's Mask. So while not obscure, Majora's Mask was definitely misunderstood for years. The 3-day cycle, the dark tone, the emotional themes, they were very, very divisive at the time, especially coming off the major success of Ocarina of Time. So many years later, now fans see it as a masterpiece, and thank you to Trey Kraus 9716 for mentioning Majora's Mask. Finally, for the underrated Zelda games in the franchise, we've got Echoes of Wisdom. So this is the most recent Zelda game, released in 2024, and it kinda just came and went. This was our first game with Zelda as our protagonist, sometimes battling Link, then finally teaming up with him towards the end of the game. I don't really know why the conversation wasn't more robust when it came to Echoes of Wisdom, but it didn't appear on many or any Game of the Year lists in 2024. You know, the echo abilities did make the game a little bit passive rather than getting in there with your sword. It was a much more laid back affair. However, Echoes of Wisdom deserves another look, and I would say it flew under the radar of many non-Zelda fans. If you haven't played it, I would give it a second look, as you're going to find a wonderful game, and some of the latter dungeons are returned to the classic Legend of Zelda dungeon design, plus you can see the influence from the recent 3D Zelda games like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom in a very interesting role reversal. Now, we've seen the 2D games influence the 3D games for years, but this time it is all reversed. Very interesting, and I hope this isn't the last we see from 2D Zelda on the Nintendo Switch platform. And thank you for Tied Up in Smoke Stacy 2935 for mentioning Echoes of Wisdom. Well, it is worth looking at the question. Now, is 2D Zelda underrated as a whole? So one theme kept coming up when I spoke to the community. 2D Zelda is underrated, not just specific games, but the entire sub-series. So Dark Dragon Medeus put it well. Even the most popular 2D Zelda is less popular than the most popular 3D Zelda, and yet 2D Zelda gave us the tightest puzzles, the most inventive dungeons, and some of the most personal storytelling. So if we have a look at the sales of Zelda games, it is interesting. So look at the top 10 Zelda games in terms of sales. 70% of those games are 3D Zelda games, 7 out of 10, with only Link's Awakening, the original Legend of Zelda, and A Link to the Past making the top 10 most successful games list. So if you add up all of the sales of all of the 2D Zelda games in the top 10, Breath of the Wild still outsells them all, and that is just with a single game. So while this makes a lot of sense, the 3D games, you know, they're much more modern. The audience now is definitely more used to 3D games and expect a 3D game. I definitely think Echoes of Wisdom suffered a little bit of a backlash in terms of fans wanting a new 3D adventure like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but it still is interesting there. The 3D games dominate the top 10 most successful Zelda games of all time. I definitely do think some of the 2D games are underrated and definitely worth going back to. Well, next up we've got my final thoughts. So what is the most underrated Zelda game? You know, maybe it's the one you never played. Maybe it's the one you played but didn't understand until years later. Or maybe it's the one that you loved even when nobody else did. For me, it's Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, and to many of you out there that is not going to be a surprise, but whatever your answer, go back, revisit it. These games are easier to access now than ever before, and they deserve a second look. So I want to hear from you. Let me know what you think in the comments. What's your pick for the most underrated Zelda game and why? And let's give these Forgotten Lands the love that they deserve. Well, as always, thank you so much for watching or for listening. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for even more Zelda content here on Triforce Times. Thanks again, and I'll see you real soon. Well, thank you so much for watching the video, but today I'd like to let you know about the Triforce Times store. If you like Triforce Times content and you want to get some merchandise, then browse the online store today. We've got t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and loads more in all shapes and sizes and colours. Also, if you didn't see something on the store that you want, then let me know in the comments. Comment on the video and let me know what you want to see in the merch store, and I will make it happen. So if you enjoy Triforce Times and want to go above and beyond to support, then the store is a great place to do that. And also, you're going to get some high quality merchandise as well, so check out the Triforce Times store today with a selection of merch below each video, and you can also check out the store link in the description if you like to browse the whole store. But this video is brought to you by Triforce Times Backstage. This is available through Patron or YouTube membership, and you're going to get exclusive benefits, plus you'll be able to go above and beyond to support Triforce Times. Free content is core to Triforce Times, and you can continue to enjoy these videos that you know and love. However, if you want to enjoy the benefits like early access, our community Discord, shoutouts in the credits of videos, content polls and exclusive videos, then select the tier that is right for you and join Triforce Times Backstage today. So help me make Triforce Times be even bigger and better, plus you're going to get some added benefits for a small fee every month. Well, thank you for listening, and now it's time to go back to the video.